Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today we're heading to the Netherlands.
Yeah.
The Netherlands. We're going to be looking at a case that's just really stuck with me, even just reading the source material.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the unsolved murder of Nicole van den Hurk.
Okay, I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's known as Het Meisje in de Put, which translates to, if you don't speak Dutch, the girl in the well.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we'll be diving into a podcast episode called The Girl in the Well, a Dutch true crime story.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, even just skimming the source material, this one is already giving me chills.
It's a case that gripped the Netherlands for decades.
Oh, yeah.
And it's for good reason. It's full of twists and turns and family drama. And, there's this shadow of doubt that kind of lingers even after a conviction.
Yeah, that's what's really getting me, I think. But let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
It's 1989 in Schiedam,
Okay.
which is a city in the Netherlands. So picture a cold gray morning,
Mm-hmm.
and 15-year-old Nicole van den Hurk is setting off on her bicycle to work. She's going to a local bakery. It's a routine she's done countless times before.
Right.
But this time, she just never arrives.
Oh.
So what happened next?
Well, obviously everyone's concerned, so a big search is launched, but weeks turn into months with no sign of her.
Right.
Her family's, clinging to hope, but as time goes on, the fear that something really terrible happened just gets stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
You can just imagine the agony of not knowing, being stuck in that limbo of unanswered questions.
It's heartbreaking to even imagine.
Yeah.
And then, 3 months after her disappearance, a discovery is made that turns this missing person's case into a full-blown murder investigation. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so a passerby is walking near a nature reserve, and they just stumble upon this abandoned well.
Okay.
Nearby, half buried in the mud, there's a bicycle.
Oh.
And inside the well, the police find Nicole's body. It's just devastating confirmation that their worst fears had come true.
From a missing person case to a murder investigation like that.
Mm-hmm.
What were the early stages of the investigation like?
The initial investigation was incredibly frustrating for everyone involved. There were no obvious leads, no eyewitnesses, and the motive was completely unclear. It just seems like a puzzle with way too many missing pieces. So the case went cold for over 2 decades, leaving Nicole's family and the community just desperate for answers.
I can only imagine the weight of that unresolved grief, like just the constant wondering of who and why. But then in 2011, there was a big breakthrough thanks to, advancements in DNA technology.
Exactly. It was a game changer. Investigators could finally re-examine all the old evidence with new tools and techniques.
Right.
And this time, they found DNA on Nicole's body. It seemed like they might finally be able to identify her killer.
So this must have been a moment of hope for Nicole's family and friends.
Right.
A chance to finally get some answers after all those years. So who did the DNA point to?
Well, this is where the case takes a truly shocking turn. The DNA matched Nicole's stepbrother.
What?
Andy van den Hurk.
Her stepbrother. I wasn't expecting that. Did suspicion immediately fall on him?
Oh, it did, and for a number of reasons. Not only was there the DNA evidence, but Andy had a troubled past that made him seem like a plausible suspect.
Right.
He was known for being manipulative and had a history of petty theft.
Mm-hmm.
Some people believe that this could be a sign of escalating criminal behavior.
So we have a DNA match and a stepbrother with a history that raised some red flags. But was he ever officially charged?
While Andy remained a person of interest throughout the investigation, he was never officially charged with Nicole's murder. And that's because there was another twist in this already complex story. Another individual entered the scene, and his DNA was also linked to the crime.
2 DNA matches.
Okay.
Now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more about this second individual.
His name is Joost G. And as we delve further into this deep dive, you'll see that his involvement in the case only adds more layers to this already perplexing mystery.
Okay, wow. 2 individuals linked to the crime scene through DNA evidence. It's like something out of a crime novel. Right. Where do we even begin to unpack this?
It's a complex situation for sure. Let's start by delving a bit deeper into Andy van den Hurk's background. We know he had that history of manipulative behavior and petty theft.
Right.
But what else can you tell me about his life in the years following Nicole's murder?
That's a good question. I'm curious what he was doing during the investigation.
Yeah.
Especially considering he was never officially charged.
Well, here's another intriguing detail. Andy actually emigrated to Spain sometime after Nicole's death. He basically started a new life over there, seemingly trying to distance himself from the events of the past.
So he kind of disappeared off the radar just as the investigation was gaining momentum with the DNA discovery. Did this move raise further suspicion?
Absolutely. Many people speculated that he might have been trying to evade scrutiny or even escape potential prosecution. The timing of his departure definitely added fuel to the fire.
It does sound suspicious, but we have to remember he wasn't charged with anything at that point. What about Joseph DeGee? You mentioned that his DNA was also found at the crime scene. How did he become a suspect?
The investigation into Joseph DeGee kind of unfolded alongside the renewed scrutiny of Andy. It seems that investigators were pursuing multiple leads simultaneously, which makes sense given the complexities of the case.
So while the spotlight was on Andy, because of the familial connection and his past behavior, investigators were also building a case against Joseph DeGee.
Exactly.
What kind of evidence did they have against him?
While the specific details of the evidence against Joseph DeGee weren't included in our source material, we do know that it was enough to secure a conviction.
Hold on. A conviction? What about Andy? And how can there be two DNA matches linked to the same crime? This is a lot to take in.
You're right. It's a lot to take in. Let's break it down. In 2018, Joseph DeGee was convicted of Nicole's rape and murder and sentenced to 12 years in prison.
Okay, so that's a pretty definitive outcome. Does this mean the case is considered closed, even with those lingering questions about Andy?
Not necessarily. Remember, Andy was never officially cleared.
Right.
And the presence of his DNA at the crime scene remains a point of contention.
I can see why this would be so frustrating for everyone involved. You have a conviction, which brings a sense of justice, but you still have this unresolved question mark hanging over Andy. It's like a puzzle where you force the pieces together, but they don't quite fit.
Exactly. And that's why this case continues to fascinate people even today. How can we reconcile Joseph DeGee's conviction with the DNA evidence linking Andy to the crime scene? Is it possible that both men were involved in some capacity?
Those are the questions that keep me up at night. What about Andy? Did he ever return to the Netherlands after moving to Spain?
He did, and the timing of his return just adds to the mystery.
Oh, really?
He came back to the Netherlands in 2011, the same year that the DNA evidence linking him to the crime scene was discovered.
Now, that's what I call a coincidence. Or was it something more calculated?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? It's hard to say for sure. Some people believe it was purely coincidental, while others speculate that he may have had ulterior motives for returning.
I can understand why this would raise even more eyebrows. It's like something out of a Hollywood thriller. Did he face any legal consequences upon his return?
While he wasn't charged with Nicole's murder, Andy's return to the Netherlands wasn't without incident. He was later convicted of sexually assaulting other young women.
Oh, wow. That's a significant development. It certainly paints a darker picture of his character and raises further questions about his potential involvement in Nicole's murder. Wow, we've uncovered a lot in this deep dive. And yet, it really feels like we're still just scratching the surface of this case.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, 2 DNA matches, a conviction, a stepbrother with a really disturbing past.
Right.
And a lot of unanswered questions. It's almost too much to wrap my head around.
It's definitely a case that challenges our understanding of justice and closure. You know, even with Joseph DeGee's conviction, there's that shadow of doubt surrounding Andy Vandenherk that just continues to linger.
Yeah, and that's what makes this story so fascinating. It's not just about finding the person who did it.
Right.
It's about really grappling with the ambiguity that often surrounds real-life crimes. Like, sometimes even a conviction doesn't provide all the answers.
You're absolutely right. This case really forces us to confront the limitations of our legal system and the complexities of human behavior. We got to remember that real life isn't some neatly packaged crime drama.
Right.
There are often loose ends, conflicting accounts, and evidence that can be interpreted in different ways.
It's a reminder that the truth can be elusive. Even when we think we've found it, there might be more to the story than we realize. In this case, the DNA evidence linking Andy to the crime scene raises really serious questions about his potential involvement, even with Joseph DeGee's conviction.
Exactly. And it highlights the importance of considering all angles, even when a case seems closed. The fact that Andy was later convicted of sexually assaulting other women just adds to the complexity. It makes you wonder, could he have been involved in Nicole's murder in some way?
Right.
Even if Joseph DeGee was the one who actually committed the crime.
It's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
And one that I'm sure continues to haunt Nicole's family and friends to this day.
Yeah.
Just the fact that they may never have a definitive answer, a clear resolution. That must be so difficult.
Absolutely. This case really drives home that closure isn't always possible. Some wounds may never fully heal. It also underscores how important it is to keep looking for answers, even when the path to truth seems murky and uncertain.
So what do you say are the main takeaways from our deep dive into the case of the girl in the well?
For me, it's a powerful example of the enduring power of unanswered questions. It's about the complexities that often come with true crime cases. It reminds us that even with all the scientific advancements and legal convictions we have, a sense of uncertainty can still stick around. Sometimes the best we can hope for is a partial truth. Just a glimpse into a darkness that we may never fully understand.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought, but it's also a reminder that real life is rarely black and white. There are a lot of shades of gray.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's up to us to really consider those, to grapple with the ambiguity, to seek understanding, and to honor the memory of those whose lives were cut short. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a truly haunting and thought-provoking case.
Absolutely.
We'll be back with another exploration of the world around us soon.